Ready, gentlemen? Good. Jim, are we ready?
You're on, boss.
7 o'clock, let's open this. 6 o'clock.
The other 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock somewhere.
Open this special meeting and learn about engineering budget.
All right. Mayor and city commissioners, what I'm going to do is talk to you about, we term it the municipal services operations, which we're going to cover the engineering budget, the engineering department, the airport budget, the streets budget, which is part of public works, the special highway revenue fund, which we've been using towards various transportation improvements. And then we're going to get into the enterprise funds, which will be solid waste, which is part of the public works operation. The water operations, which has an administrative, a public works portion, and also has a contractual operation for the water plant. We're going to talk about the wastewater, which likewise that has the 3 same components. And then the final one we'll talk to you this evening about is going to be the stormwater. So with that, I'm going to jump right into the engineering budget, which is on page 14. And I'd like to just walk you through, I guess, maybe the items that we highlighted as far as within the budget, as well as maybe just share with you our thoughts on the different line items. I'll call out the three-digit line item where we had requested a particular budget amount, and then the city manager's office recommended as far as another. So, as you know, we've hired the engineering department consists of an assistant city engineer, an engineering technician, and also a co-op student that is retained during the summer. And then this year, what we've done is worked with Mrs. Beatty in defining as far as a full-time administrative secretary to work with the engineering department on many of the items that they're involved in. I act as the city's assistant city engineer, seeing I'm the only one that holds a professional engineering license. So Chris Finger on a day-to-day oversees this operation, but then I get myself involved as far as when indeed on an as-needed basis. The line item that we had requested on the overtime, what we're looking for there, again, we recognize we want to be careful on that aspect. We're trying to hopefully get involved in a little bit more inspection work on our staff as far as in soil erosion and sedimentation control measures and alike. And really those dollar numbers that we were looking for were really to cover 2 staff members, that being the administrative secretary on an as-needed basis if we need to bring her in, or the engineering technician, because the assistant city engineer is a salaried position. I'm going to move down to the motor fuel. We've got 3 vehicles that are covered as far as within this operation. One is driven by the assistant city engineer, the other by the engineering technician, and the other by the co-op. In prior years, it was our opinion we didn't really have the engineer technician out in the field as much as we would like. So therefore, that's why you saw the adjustment. But I can see that there's an adjustment downward on that, because the hope is maybe that we'll see some fuel savings in moving away from the county. The subscription as far as of books, what we're looking for there is be able to purchase some technical documents that indeed the engineering department can use as far as on their day-to-day as far as work activities, be it transportation books, be it books that are available as far as through the American Water Works Association. Right now we're using a few of books that I brought in that are my personal books, but again, they're not the latest versions, but that's what we were looking for is there. The next item that I wanted to cover was the software. That's really as far as covering as far as our, which is 669. That's covering as far as the GIS, as far as in the AutoCAD, as far as software that we use as far as within the engineering department. We work hand in hand with IT in developing as far as that number. We were requesting 1,600 and it went down to 600. We've got 2 licenses or 3 licenses that are used as far as within that operation. The 703, which is the advertising and printing, Really what we're looking to do is step up as far as our enforcement with respects to soil erosion, our permitting process, and some of the forms that we use. We would cover as far as that cost, as far as within that line item. The 728 engineering services, I know this was brought up last year. That's really so that indeed if we need specialized traffic engineering, structural engineering, our biannual bridge as far as inspection program is covered as far as through that. It's really as far as, or itemized engineers' cost estimates that we need to have sealed, or assistance as far as on researching as far as grants. The vehicle maintenance, again, I noted, which is 746. We've got 3 vehicles in there. One of them is relatively new. I believe it's a 2012. The other 2 are relatively older vehicles, especially the, I call it the small S10 pickup truck that we basically assumed that from the Public Works operation. Basically, what we're looking to cover as far as in there is basically the oil changes, any kind of service operations that are done by Public Works on those vehicles. So we were trying to allocate 500 a vehicle. The travel and training, I know this has been brought up by this commission. The number that we had budgeted as far as with engineering accounts to about 2% of that budget, as well as the dues account for 0.7 of the overall budget. It equates to about $500 per staff. My cost as far as on any kind of travel and training is covered in portion, 20% within the engineering budget. I basically spread it throughout different budgets as far as within the municipal services. It's primarily be able to hold as far as my professional engineering license, as well as when I entered into my contract with Jerry Vernon, the former city manager, being allowed to attend a couple of state conferences as well as one national conference on behalf of the city every year. So with that, I'd be happy to maybe try to answer questions you might have on our line items.
Let's go back up to 520.
Sure.
On the wages, I'm just curious, they've gone up and then dropped and...
Right. What in the engineering department, very little as far as of the actual engineering full-time staff is covered within the engineering budget. The assistant city engineer and the engineering technician, only 25% of their wages are covered as far as within that budget. The rest of their wages are covered underneath the water administration, the wastewater administration, and also covered underneath stormwater. The administrative secretary for this department is covered as far as within the water administration budget, wastewater administration, stormwater, and also as far as in part as far as in building and codes.
So this line item is actually just 25% of the salary of 2 people?
Of 2 people, correct. Correct. And then the 6,000 up above it is for the co-op student.
All right. And so the overtime would be for one of those wages there because nobody else is covered in there.
Right, right. And what we're really trying to do, Cheryl and I actually had quite a bit of discussion about this year, is trying to truly align as far as the staff members in the areas that they truly are working on. We've got the engineering staff is really going to be working more and more on the water systems, the wastewater systems, and the stormwater systems. And so their salaries or their wages really should be covered by those operations. And that's what we were trying to do.
Yeah, makes sense.
So why are we needing to bring the administrative secretary in for overtime? Why is that?
If indeed we had deadlines as far as on reports, then indeed maybe we need as far as to get expedited or get them completed, we'd have her come in for that. We've had occasions where we've had to have them come in and assist on the different licenses and permits that generally as far as our send out through building and codes, and then we send those notices out in August. for the individuals to renew them, and unfortunately, everyone likes to send them in to us the last 2 weeks in December. And they're to be processed and completed as far as the first part of January.
But that overtime ought to be reflected in the budget where wages actually come from.
Right.
That's building and codes, yeah.
She is 50% covered by building and codes.
No, she's not.
Is she not?
Engineering is 100% engineering,
Oh, okay.
Tanika, and building and codes is 100%.
Oh, okay.
Why would these reports come in at the last minute? Is it a scheduling issue, or is it people just don't submit the reports on time?
I think it's just having that flexibility. I mean, I guess if we got to keep them within that 40 hours, surely we're going to try to do that. Again, we're not looking to work as far as staff overtime if we don't have to,
Right.
but I think we're looking for that ability to be able to have that if indeed we've got projects or activities that we need to be able to get done within a different time frame or within a specific time frame. We want to be able to have that ability. The only other ability is that we turn around and yeah, let them go early as far as on, say, a Friday, so that we keep within the 40 hours of their work week.
Somebody else's tardiness shouldn't cause us taxpayers overtime.
That's going to
Yeah, we don't have a problem with that. I mean, I'm just pointing it out as far as our reasoning on it.
I have one question.
Sure.
On the sheet here, on 2015, the adjustment, at the very bottom, the total, it's got the negative 100,877.
That's wrong.
Yeah, okay.
It's an error.
Where do you see that?
At the bottom on the
Down
total.
here. Right there.
Oh, okay.
I was really trying to figure out where that 100,000,
What am I editing? I told you.
She's
I
got her
had
formulas in
too
the
many
spreadsheet.
late nights.
okay, we're good.
That's just a spreadsheet error.
Because you took the 2014 budget and duplicated
Yeah.
it for 2015, then Greg submitted his for 2015, right? That's what's listed
Mhm.
there? Okay.
Is there an increase in salary?
2% is all.
And there's a minor adjustment for the assistant city engineer, I believe. The small amount.
Maybe you ought to raise your license
His
fee,
was
and if
done
they get
last year.
Was it all done last year?
Yeah.
Okay.
He says, pardon?
raise your license fee, and then if they turn it in a month ahead of drop dead date, then they get 10% back.
A reward program.
Something to
An
think about.
incentive.
That might help with that. Alleviate some of the problem.
Another one.
Those that don't, pay the price.
What is under the lease purchase?
It's the 2012 pickup truck that was
Oh, that's a pickup.
purchased as far as for engineering. I believe it replaced a 1996 pickup truck. That was 2 years ago.
So this lease purchase went from 1,600 to 3,300. In 2012, when we bought the pickup, it was 1,664?
No, in 2012, you would have seen,
It's halfway through the year.
Probably just like a partial year.
We started in July for the...
right, for the
program.
half a year. And then,
Okay.
So,
And then the
and then
even out?
the auditors are asking us to break out interest and purchase.
Okay.
And the actual principal.
Okay.
So we break it out now. When you see the actual purchase, the 15, that would have been the purchase price of the vehicle. And then I get a lease payment on the revenue side, or the money from the bank on the lease side as lease receipts for the bank. You would have seen a revenue side that would have matched that 15,507 on the revenue side. But when you're recording capital, you have to record it all at once, and then it gets minused out because you received the cash, and then every year then it gets recorded in as the lease purchases are done. It's an auditing thing, or a
And it
accounting
runs
thing
out.
rather. It's an accounting thing rather than an actual.
I think it's good to break out the salaries for what's actually being worked on, whether it's wastewater, I think that's a really good idea,
We have a better handle
to
on
show how
that this year.
that's really paid for based on your time.
Mhm.
That's a good idea.
Any other questions?
The only other question, and under 735, under telephone, does that include landline and cell phones?
Yes,
That's all inclusive?
yes.
Is my math correct? So then the department total is about 83,504? Remember that? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, the next one is page 15, which is the airport fund. Essentially, we've got just 3 items that we'd like to highlight to you is really item 670, which is the miscellaneous supplies. That one sort of goes hand in hand with 742. What we're trying to do is more recognize the maintenance really that's undertaken, or at least on the city's behalf out at that facility, has been really to the runway and the grounds by Public Works. Last year, we did quite a bit of joint crack sealing as far as along the runways. We typically, as far as have restriped as far as the parking lot, as far as the area and the tarmac areas. And then we do generally as far as minor repairs as far as on those areas. So that's what that 3,000 that's allocated in the 742, and that's why you see the reduction on the miscellaneous supplies. The 835, we've got 3 projects that have been identified in our CIP, which we've been working with the FAA as far as on a grant match. And after the printout of this, we were able to get some further clarification from the FAA to be able to push that 3A, which is snow removal equipment. We explained to them right now that Public Works handles as far as that operation. We did not really see the benefit to be able to expend as far as be it the city's 10% or 20% on a piece of snow removal equipment, where indeed it's just going to be sitting outside. So the 2 projects that we're looking to undertake for next year would be the perimeter fencing project and the segment circle as far as in wind cone as far as project. With that, I'd be happy to maybe try to answer any questions that you may have as far as on this budget. I guess I should point out on the 798, the contractual mowing, we're under a 3-year contract right now. That contract is up this year. And in our request, we basically just rolled in a 5% fuel cost and cost for service increase, which is in the current 3-year contract, and we've seen that occur the last 3 years. So that's where you see we had requested in the department budget $15,435, and the city manager was recommending $14,700. But we really won't know as far as on that 2015 till we actually have somebody under contract, but we're assuming as far as we felt it would be pretty close as far as to what we had before.
The contract operations should be, 22, and so the total on that budget is actually equal to 105,332.
On which one?
The total should be
She's off over here.
105,332.
Should have been 22,000, she put 2,200.
Instead of 85, that should be 105,332.
Yeah.
And then, did I hear you say on item 835 that the snow removal equipment isn't a part of that anymore?
Correct.
So, okay, so that shouldn't be 43, that'd be less than 43,000?
33.
That's 31.8
23.
is the new total.
Well, if you're doing B and C, that's 12 and 11, that'd be 33,000, wouldn't it?
23,000.
23,000. not 31, because at 31.8
Yeah.
would have the
Mm.
snow removal in it.
We'll do that. Must have added A, B instead of B and C.
Because we can use our existing.
We were so up and down on that, but Greg came back and said that they would be agreeable to not doing the snow removal equipment. Before, they had told them
It
that
told us
they
a couple
wanted it.
times that we had deferred it several years in a row, and they were telling us that we've deferred it enough. And I think what we did is we convinced them that through Public Works, we currently do it, and we're concerned about that the equipment would be sitting outside.
Yeah, originally, I said I would fund 2 of them, but not 3 of the 3, and that's why the 31.8. And then he came back and said that then in the end, that they would defer it. And the airport board members, and after talking with Chris as well, that the perimeter fencing and the segment and circle was more important to them.
And that's 23.
Right.
Yeah, make it 23 instead of 31.8.
Is there perimeter fencing there now?
Partially. Not all the way around. That's what this corrects, is it closes it completely off.
And what is the need for closing it off?
Security, they're supposed to be, airports are supposed to be, FAA prefers that they're 100% fenced around them.
Preferred.
And the place that's open's over there on the Westwood side, isn't it?
Yes.
Correct.
And is that like an,
Keep
Keep people
kids from
running
going down
out.
in there and
Public
playing.
Works last year, as part of the Public Works budget, we went in and fenced as far as the balance of the Public Works yard in the back. The westwood portion is the part that still remains open.
And is that a requirement? I mean, what I'd like to know is is it a problem? Are we doing it just because it's nice to have done, or are we doing it because we're mandated to do so?
I would go as strong to say mandate, but strongly encourage to have all airports perimeter fenced. They haven't, thrown a hammer that I know of.
No, I think the way that we've been working, and actually Chris Finger's been working with them more than myself, is we've been trying to work with them, number one, updating as far as our CIP plan as far as with the airport, and also indicating to them that we've got limited dollars as far as in which to expend. And typically the projects are either come out where we're paying as far as between 10 and 20% of the total project cost. The rest is funded through the state of Kansas as far as Department of Transportation is where we're getting as far as the balance, which I believe
Well,
as far as
it's
the
federal-
airport,
it's-
right?
it's-
It's federal money
it's
that's
federal money.
funneled through as far as through the state.
So our portion of it's 12,000
10%, 10 to 20%, right?
Well,
of that,
this-
or?
It's a 10%, it's a 90-10 grant, so our
Right.
portion of the 23,000 will be $2,300. But we have to put it into this budget, and then I will, on the other flip side, put it in the revenue side as receiving 28 will come from FAA on
But
the revenue
our
side.
portion's only 2,100, 2,300, something like that, that's right. This is total cost, 23K is total cost.
So we budget for the total cost?
You have to budget for the total under
We
the
receive
expenditure
the
side.
monies
Because
from
we
the
receive
FAA,
it
and that's
from-
how we have to delineate that on our budget.
Yeah,
And that's how it
Yeah.
washes out?
yes.
What is the airport revenue? I didn't see anything on it.
It's not here, it's over here. I can tell you what it was.
I want to clarify something.
Page
Yes.
14, it's $101,618.
Yeah,
Oh,
our
okay.
share,
Our share is 22,000.
I want to clarify something on these two projects. The
Okay.
way that, and I'm just going to use the wind cone for an example. We've got an engineer's estimate of that project of a total cost of $50,000, okay? There is a engineering and administrative cost of 20%, that is $8,300, and then there's an estimated on the construction portion of around $42,000. So
Okay.
this 23,000 is our cost
Okay.
of both of those projects.
Because the
That
grant
is
goes-
our 10% plus our engineering and administration.
He's right, the grant
So-
part goes through the grant fund.
You can look at these projects and essentially say that we're looking at two projects that are roughly around $150,000, and the city's share of those two projects would be 23,000.
So it wasn't 2,300, we got a decimal.
Right.
Yeah, you need to make sure we're
I
clear
wondered
on
about that, because that seemed awful.
Okay.
Yeah,
cheap.
I thought I separated out the revenue on the sheets, but I don't. I'll look it up to see what last year's revenue was on the airport.
Well, it says on your pie chart on page 14 of the,
That's expenditures.
That's
oh,
expenditures.
you're right, I'm
And then
sorry.
on, I think the revenues for the airport are included in rent on,
Well, there's rent, and then there's the gas money. Only by memory, and not without looking up, it's around $40,000 to $45,000.
I can't believe we made $100,000 on the airport. That'd be great if we did.
We've already done a rent analysis, a rent study, and the rents were done at market value
2 years ago.
2 years ago. In 2018, when, and this was something that was done by Rod, he had made a deal with Kansas Air. They built the building, and part of the deal was the Lifestar came in at the same time. They rented that building to Lifestar for $1,000 a month, and that goes then back to Kansas Air, which offsets the cost of their new building, and then we pay them the $22,000 for being airport manager. So in the end, this is a sweet deal. In the end, he basically gets that building for nothing. So when that ends in 2018, we plan on putting the airport manager position out to bid, and Kansas Air then will from then forward also have to pay us a land lease, and the rent money from Lifestar, should they still be there, will be $1,000 a month to the city. So with that kind of revenue coming in, we'll be a lot closer to breaking even, if not breaking even, because airports don't make it on land leases. You need to own the
Hangars.
buildings. You need to own the hangars in order to make it, and that's what a lot of small airports have learned. You want to be financially flush, you need to own the hangars yourself. Now, should we, down the road, long-term planning, and people want to sell those hangars out there, I would suggest that the city buy them, and then so that you can start charging the rent and you get the rent money. That's how airports become financially even, is they own the hangars. But that's long-term planning. It's not something that we can afford now, and that's something I would suggest we do now. But in a short time from now, there will be more revenue coming in on the airport.
You say you did a rate structure
Yes,
fee,
2 years ago.
and how does that, is it a graduated,
Yes, you
Yeah.
get a cost of living with it each year. And it's based on size of the hangar.
and that cost of living? To go by CPI or?
Yeah, yep. CPI index.
And so the airport's in the red by,
About half that.
what'd you say it was? 100?
Expenditures are
Well, you take the
101.
8.8 off, and it's
They're making
96,532. So if they take in 45,000, it's about half. But there will be a point in time where that airport can be flush, but it isn't right now,
Not until beyond 2018.
because of the deals that were struck previously.
And that's somehow tied to the FAA?
No, FAA,
Some of our costs are mandated by the federals?
well, we have to follow, as any airport, FAA rules and regulations for the operation of the airport.
And then there's grant money tied to that?
Well, there's grant money that's available to us for maintenance and improvements on the airport.
And there's grant money that we received that we would have to pay back if we decided to close it.
Yes, if,
Okay.
that's probably what you're talking about.
I think there's a charge on airline
Did-
tickets. Whenever you fly, you pay a little fee, and then that's what goes to these smaller airports. And
It's a
they've got
FAA trust
90%.
fund.
Yeah.
That's where the grant monies come from. It comes from an FAA trust fund, and every time you fly, you pay into that.
I still think we ought to be charging more if you don't live in town out there,
Or
or to have a plane out there.
a land lease,
Mhm.
that we could do.
I think it's only fair. I mean,
You get closer to zero.
there are
and that's-
residents that are doing this, just like so many other things around here. It's a fairness issue.
And those leases are a year-to-year lease, so we could implement it for 2015. And what he was referring to on that, Mr. McAllister, is every time you get money from the FAA trust fund, you sign a grant agreement. And in that grant agreement, it ties you to that, if you continue to use that as an airport, then you would owe them, based on a graduated scale, you'd owe money back to them on a depreciated basis. They usually capture, when I talk to them, about a 10-year window. So they can go back further, but they usually take a 10-year window and amortize that out. And Chris and I started to make a list of all of the projects, and I had it well over $2 million when we started adding them up. They would make you pay that back if you close that airport tomorrow. We estimated 2 years ago, and there's been some amortization since, but we've also added a project since, about $1 million. Anywhere from $750,000 to $1 million is what we would owe them back if we closed the airport tomorrow. And I asked them specifically, because I knew, because I've worked in other airports, of the other airports, and I had known that they had done this, but I very specifically asked the gentleman, if we closed our airport, this was during the crisis, would you come after us for that money? And he said, yes, we would. We've done it elsewhere.
So we're better off being 55, 60 grand in the red for 4 more years.
Till
We can
18.
start making money in 18
Right.
versus having to come up with $1 million lump sum payment.
It's the same thing on our economic development deals that were made. It's just something we have to get through, because there's nothing you can do about the agreements that were put into place.
Nothing's free.
Nothing's free. And once we work through those deals, we can start charging a land lease to Kansas Air, and we can start getting the rent off of the Lifestar building. It'll come to us. It'll no longer go to Kansas Air.
Okay.
And last year, we did the fuel containment area, which was, our match was like 40 grand?
Actually,
Two
we're
projects.
doing total of 3 projects. We're doing as far as the fuel containment this year, which is going to give us basically an area where we'll be able to park the fuel trucks and contain as far as the fuel in a concrete area. And then the other project that we completed was the PAPI lighting, and also as far as upgrading as far as the runway lighting. And those projects are 98% complete. The only requirement we still have remaining is to do a final check-through with FAA as far as on the certification, as far as all those lighting.
If you recall, the API and runway lines was combined into one project, so that it would be cost savings in the long run for that, rather than dragging it out. And the other one was, we got an EPA inspection, and we failed it. So we applied then for, I applied for a state grant, and we got that for the fuel containment. So 50% of that?
50%,
50/50?
right.
It was a
It's about a
50/50 match.
$40,000 project. $50,000 project.
Yeah, in order to get
Right.
that correction done for the fuel containment.
Any other questions on the airport? The next budget that we're going to talk to you with is, it's actually the the largest segment within Public Works, and it's on page 16, and it's the street fund. And I have several that I'd like to walk the commission through or just point out. And I'm going to use the three line items as far as along the way. 510, we had requested $50,000 in overtime for the streets group. That was primarily for winter snow removal operations. The manager recommendation was $25,000. The wage adjustments for 520, that is primarily for the maintenance worker 2, having a salary adjustments within the streets group as well as a 2% increase for all of the staff that are within the streets group.
Say that again.
This is for the salary adjustments. When there was the study that was done a year ago,
Salary survey.
salary survey, there was a maintenance worker 2 position. This is the only position within Public Works that was identified for an adjustment. So there's a slight adjustment above and beyond the 2% for those staff members. There are 2 maintenance 2 workers within streets.
And part of, you see the decline is the stormwater. Billy Horn's salary comes out off of streets and into stormwater. 100% of the stormwater is projected on this one.
Correct.
Yep.
And then I guess I'd like to note, too, to the commission is for this particular group, that being the streets, we've had some employees leave employment with the city, and we've had some vacancies that we were not able as far as to fill at the time that the individuals had left. So that's why you see the numbers as far as historically, be it going up and down as far as within this particular fund.
But Mr. Horn's salary, his second half of his salary is $17,758, I think. And that's being moved from streets into stormwater.
Stormwater 100% this year. He currently is covered 50% by the stormwater program. He 8 to 10 months out of the year, he's running a street sweeper. The other 2 to 3 months, he may be on the joint crack sealing program with the streets group.
Why are the part-time wages going up? Are you looking to hire more part-time people?
We right now cover a portion of the part-time secretary in Public Works as far as in this, as far as line item, as well as we have 3 seasonal employees that are covered as far as within the streets group, as far as underneath this line item.
I think it's 6, but let me look.
Pardon?
I think it's more than
Is it
3.
6?
I think it's 6.
They weren't covered before.
6 seasonal workers at $680, $12 each.
6 seasonal workers plus the secretary?
Mm-hmm. Part-time secretary.
And she's in part funded as far as within this. $35% of her wages are covered in the streets.
Yep.
Wages and benefits.
What changed between 2013 and 2014 with a 100% increase?
Just the reallocation, that they're in the right line item.
Okay.
That was, as he said, we've been going through transition, making sure everything's in the right place, getting everything allocated properly. Same with the workers, getting them allocated to the right budgets.
And the benefits.
Yeah. And certainly, we would rather spend money on seasonal workers than hiring another full-time person paying benefits. It's the best way to spend your money.
What was the increase between the 2015 budget and manager's recommendation of $15,000?
In which line item?
Line item 515.
More part-time workers
Yes.
versus full-time, right?
Versus trying to address issues without hiring full-time staff. Summertime's when you do your
Right,
work.
we actually, in prior years, we had 4 seasonal workers that were assigned as far as in streets, and we're looking to have 6 assigned as far as this coming year.
And I agreed with him on that, because summertime's when you need them.
And it was a rough winter.
A lot of pothole patching to do. And they have to be, seasonal workers can only work 4 months, 40 hours a week, to be classified seasonal. Otherwise, you have to pay benefits.
And this is very similar to what Parks and Rec does with their seasonal workers. We work hand in hand with Mr. Lazier on interviewing and selection. Again, we're looking for general laborers. These are equivalent to a maintenance worker 1. Surely we'd like to get individuals that have skills and abilities, and it's sort of a means for us to be able to test the waters with them as well as them with us to see indeed as we have maintenance worker 1 positions open up, and surely if we get a seasonal that is very good, we'd definitely like to give them the consideration to be able to come on board. We've had that occasion occur a couple of times already as far as within Public Works. I'm just going to keep going down these items unless there's other items. The 603, the building maintenance, we had requested as far as 6,000, and city manager's recommendation was 3. We were looking to do some work in and around the 2 street maintenance buildings as far as over at the Public Works facility. It was primarily concrete pad work that we were looking to do. The 610 is the chemicals as far as that we use as far as within the Public Works operation. We had requested, what we were trying to do is basically truly identify as far as the chemicals that are associated as far as with the Public Works operations, and in turn as far as make sure that we're paying for them within the correct line item and not taking them out of miscellaneous supplies. If you'll notice, in 2013, miscellaneous supplies, 670, was rather high, and that's because the Public Works staff, be it the director, the supervisor, and the clerical staff, were not posting or putting the items in the correct line items. The overall streets fund budget was still under budget, but yet particular line items were not being covered. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that indeed we have as far as those items covered. Some of the chemicals that we have within there are the asphalt cleaners, the neutral wash as far as for the equipment, form oil as far as for use as far as in concrete work, curing compound, the weed spraying as far as that we do on the vacant streets as far as areas, basically as far as makes up the bulk as far as of that. Also the tack oil that we use as far as in the asphalt as far as operations.
How much weed control do we do?
We typically will go through, we've got 21 miles of vacant streets. We basically will spray at one time in the season, the curb area between the asphalt and the curb. We will spray those as far as one time. We'll go through several gallons as far as the material. We'll go through roughly around about $2,000 worth of chemicals in the weed spraying 21 miles of vacant streets.
And I told the county that we didn't do any weed spraying.
We do the vacant street areas to preserve the integrity of those vacant streets. We're spraying from the edge of the curb and when the asphalt comes together. We use the tractor and sprayer jointly with Parks and Rec, and we work hand in hand with the contractual mower that mows all the vacant street areas. They mow an 8-foot area from back of curb into the property. And then what we do is we'll come in one time and basically spray those areas with our tractor unit.
We can spray without having certified sprayers if it's our own property.
Right.
You can't spray other properties.
What we do is we fall under the license as far as of the golf course superintendent. We've worked that out with the state on our ability to be able to spray those areas because they are public right-of-way. So, and we use a isolated sprayer behind a tractor unit in order to get some efficiency. We'll use a seasonal worker to spray those areas. We also spray the various islands within the city's right-of-way, that being Grant Avenue. There are several boulevard islands throughout the city that we'll spray as well with a seasonal worker. And we'll spray those a couple of times as far as throughout the season, not just once.
But in item 610, it went with the 2015 adjustment of 12,668. Then it went to department total for 2015, 13,868. But we're only going to give you $1,000 because some of that's covered by other departments, or?
Well, I think in part it's because we did not use any allotment in 2013, nor we've got 1,200 budgeted as far as in 2014.
Okay.
And one of the items that I've asked as far as Ray Ibarra, the Director of Public Works, as well as his clerical staff and his supervisors, to make sure that items that we are needing within the streets program, that we allocate those to the proper line items as far as, and rather than be putting them all into miscellaneous supplies, where indeed they're just lumped into one area. If indeed we've got a line item that is specifically called out for particular procurement, we should be utilizing those. And that's why you see that huge adjustment.
Good, I like that. I have one.
I was going to say, rightfully so, when you look at that miscellaneous supplies, if you'll notice that it was $196,000 actual in 2013, and this year we had requested $30,000. And that's because those dollars are reallocated as far as within the proper line items, as far as within the street fund.
Okay. On item 614, the landscaping.
Correct.
Okay, is the landscaping, is that for city landscaping around public works areas, or?
What we use those, that line item for is to purchase soil erosion control materials or straw bale swales. We also use it for soil erosion matting, grass seed purchase, 4- and 6-inch rock riprap materials that we purchase throughout the year.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What was the major software purchase that you wanted under 669?
Sure. One of the items that we're looking to do is, there's been a lot of discussion amongst the city as far as on our street maintenance program, and we've shared with you where the city is lacking in expenditures, and I know we're all scrambling for dollars. Likewise, we're very concerned with the data that we're being able to generate and accumulate. And right now, we use a paver program that is not, at least in our opinion, very friendly because it does not tie into any of the public works activities that are ongoing. In other words, when Public Works goes out and joint crack fields or goes out and does pothole work or any kind of street maintenance activities, be it a skin patch or anything like that, those are not tied into any kind of pavement management system. And as you recall, we've been trying to move forward with an overall asset management system, that being Cartograph. Very successful right now, at least getting that work director on tracking work orders and the like in Public Works. It's an invaluable tool. But we're moving forward as far as with the water view and sewer view this year. What we wanted to do was try to move forward with the pay view component. One of the items that we have found is that all of the data that we have generated with respects to this paver, we'll be able to take that data and roll it directly, with some adjustment, roll it into a pay view program. Our feeling is that we've got a new engineering technician that we feel is extremely confident and energized and willing as far as to get out and start making, as far as I want to call it, those new adjusted as far as adjustments as far as on the overall segments within the city that would need to be undertaken should we move forward with the pay view. What we really want to try to do is we'll have mapping capabilities or GIS capabilities with Paveview, which we currently don't have with Paver. And then likewise, as we're moving forward with, call it water system improvements or sanitary system improvements, these things will basically be able to be stacked on top of one another into various layers. So when we start looking at a particular street segment for a particular improvement, we'll be able to look at as far as the other infrastructure areas at the same time or simultaneously, and we'll be able to know, is there a water main that needs to be as far as included in that because it's been identified as part of the asset management system. So we're looking to, in our mind, it may appear as a significant item. The cost to be able to implement that paver program would be looking at $22,000, but when you consider that we're looking at expending, we would hope sometime in the future, somewhere between $4 and $5 million a year on street maintenance because of the lag that we've got on this. At least in our mind, that's a very minimal cost considering as far as what you're going to be able to derive from the use of this Paveview program. Some of the things that we feel we're going to be able to achieve versus the micro paver is it's surely going to be much easier for our staff to use. The Paveview would go around with a Trumbull unit, handheld GIS unit that we can download the information. Right now with the paver program, the micro paver program, we go around with hard sheets. We fill in the form, then somebody gets to sit in front of a computer and drop those items into the database, and then it recalculates out a number. The other thing it's going to do is it's going to put ourselves as far as so we've got consistent standards as far as between the other GIS as far as in asset management systems that we're implementing. Both Cartograph and Micropaver do use the same standards, so the data that we have, it's very convertible. We've already discussed that with Cartograph on being able to do that. In choosing this, again, we noted already that we're moving forward with the water view, the sanitary view. We've already got in place a sign view. Long-term wise, and we've already done this with the stormwater management program, is we've asked AMAC as they generated all of the data to be able to make it so that it is user-friendly eventually to tie it into a storm view component. So again, we're going to be truly working from an asset management system when we start looking at all of our infrastructure needs or improvements or maintenance activities. So that's really what we were looking for in that line item. And
you've already identified the streets that you plan on working on in 15, 16, 17, and 18, haven't you?
That's based on the information that we have, which is through the use of the paver, micro paver program. We have roughly, I believe, over 2,200 segments within the city. We went through several hundred of them last year and the year before. Again, it's a painstaking process because you're going through and filling out a form for each segment or each block.
But you've already done that.
We've done it to a limited degree. And I think what we were looking for this year is, again, we're really excited about bringing this engineer technician on. And we really want to take advantage of, I guess I call it, his abilities and I think his desire to be able to get his arms around this pavement management system. Further on, you'll see that we had another item in there that and we shared this in brief with the Commission. We've watched from afar what the City of Salina has done with respects to their pavement management system. They are using Paveview, and they have also gone through and done a scanned imaging as far as of their street, as far as entire street network. And I believe it cost them roughly around $40,000 to go through and do their entire community as far as basically drive through, and they can use that data, tie it into a GIS system, and it helps indeed further rate as far as the conditions of those streets, not just even surface but also subsurface. And that was another item that we had asked for. Again, we're trying to look at get the best data and information we can if we're truly going to be looking at spending, and I'm going to say millions of dollars. I'm very concerned about the use of the system that we currently have. It's better than not having any system, but it does not take into account the other attributes that we should be doing. And that's what we were after.
If I were in the position that where I had $5 or $10 million here to spend on streets, I'd be thinking that this was a really good thing. But when we're trying to scramble and scratch between 500,000 and $1 million a year, it's pretty hard for me to start looking at buying tools to go out and record what we already know, that our streets are in bad shape.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, if you know what streets you're going to do, next year, this winter, you've got time for somebody to do some checking on what water mains and what sewer lines are underneath those streets in case you do want, because if we start repairing water mains and sewer lines at the same time, now we're going to be cutting down what we can do on the streets even more, because that's going to be a lot more work to rebuild the streets. Surface have to go in and trench it.
And that is one of the reasons why we were recommending to move forward with that paver system now, because yes, we have data coming in from different databases. That being, the WaterView is now going to be tied with a very good GIS, very good worker user system through incorporating all the information from Public Works, where indeed the pavement system is going to be from what we've already done with the micro paver system, the ranking system. If you asked me today, what do I have as far as level of comfort, how well those ratings overall on those 2,200 segments, I can tell you in my 2 years in being here of us really getting after that system, I would say that I've probably got a level of comfort of about 60 to 70%. We're going to give you the best we have, but we don't have real good information. I mean, you know, there are, like I said, there's 2,200 segments, and you've got 2 staff members, actually 1 staff member that's out there, out on the street, basically gathering that information.
Well, the condition
it's
of the street-
time-consuming.
The condition of the streets changes yearly.
Absolutely.
So it's a moving target. Just because somebody filled out a piece of paper last year doesn't mean it's good this year.
And some of the...
Paver accounts for that.
Mhm.
The condition index accounts for, if it's this condition this year and you live in the Midwest and you can expect certain types of temperatures over the next year, your condition will be this next year. And paver is a very good program. It's used by a lot of different municipalities. It is labor intensive, but it's labor intensive to anybody. Anybody can use it.
Right.
You can have fire departments, police departments. You can have those folks doing condition survey assessments on that index. It's pretty simple. And I believe they now have it electronically, that you have a computer, you can fill it right out in the computer, and it downloads to your system.
We're not aware of that. Right now, the latest version that we are utilizing is we're still compiling in that sense. And again, I noted to you, we've got several thousand segments. We got 1 staff member. It's staff is really what it is. I mean, we're trying to, when one says, hey, why do you need more tools? Well, we don't need more tools if we had more staff. We could continue using as far as this kind of system. When we look at like those segments, how many of those have been re-rated in the last several years? I believe, as far as, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, we got through about 1/3 of them, about 1/4 of them, that we were able to upgrade those, and we primarily focused ourselves predominantly on the asphalt segments. And the reason we did that is because we knew that we had a significant number of streets that were teetering on the aspect of either being milled and overlaid or being joint crack sealed, or looking at a potential on doing micro paving as far as on it, or micro surfacing as far as on those segments. So there are a lot of segments within the system that we have not rated or re-rated within at least my 3 years, or slightly less since I've been here. We've not even touched those. And I think what we're trying to do is reach out to some tools that we know are going to give us very good information as we move forward, because I will tell you, I'm very concerned that even if we start spending $1 million a year, that are we really spending, and that's the other thing that Payview will tell you. It will tell you indeed where indeed and what kind of treatments you should be doing on your street system based on the data that you have. In other words, we'll import the data from Paver. The data we have it's not bad data. We're not going to lose it. We're going to take that data or information we have from the 2,200 segments, import it, and then we need to rework several of those. But as we rework those, and if you turn around and said to me, Greg, we're only going to give you $500,000 or we're going to give you $700,000 for the street program, that Payview program is going to tell us what segments and what treatment we should be undertaking within those areas.
So this would make a better use of staff time to cover more streets and reevaluate everything yearly.
That's what we're after.
Since we're not going to pay for additional staff, and we're only getting a third of the job done with what we have, we could do more work, more assessment yearly with the current staff that we have. If we had a
Correct.
different program.
Correct. I guess maybe that, there's several line items in here that you had seen that were basically pared back. I guess I'm prepared to say in this sense, I see the line item that's at the very bottom there, and we're trying to get streets done. And when you look at the line item underneath as far as contractual operations, 797, and you look at the dollar numbers that we're trying to get in there, city manager is recommending $850,000. There are many items along this street fund budget, and it's my opinion as far as on many of them, I think we would be better served if we put that money back into those line items and allow, as far as our public works staff that is in streets, to be able to utilize that. And what I mean, a good example of this is you look at 632 street maintenance. We've laid out through the street superintendent various items that we want to try to undertake in a preventive measure, be it expanding our joint crack sealing program, expanding our pothole patching program, doing as far as some minor concrete repairs in-house, because we've got the staff and we've got the abilities to be able to do that now, where prior to this we didn't really have that. I mean, we're now getting ourselves ramped up, and yeah, we want to try to take advantage of that, and all the way down through this, as far as we see that. I guess my recommendation to the commission would be pare back that contractual aspect. Sure, I want to get streets done too, but if I could internally joint crack seal an entire subdivision versus milling and overlaying a couple of blocks, I think we're better served by getting those streets joint crack sealed and preserving, as far as that asset, that many more years longer. And we've got that, as far as, I guess I say, throughout, as far as this. I mean, I'm prepared to go through each one of those, but again, I guess it's really, what are we all after?
I'm after getting as many streets repaired as we can.
Mm-hmm. I am too.
And quite frankly, we have streets identified that need work. I don't really see the need to spend $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000 to buy a computer program to tell us what we already have on paper. I don't think we need to do that this year. That's my personal opinion.
And again, the intent of the program in 2015 was to be able to further define what would be done in 2016, 17, and 18. You're right. We've already presented to you what we feel is a very good program. I will say that in later years, I don't think we're going to have that level of comfort, and what we were trying to do is institute that entire system in 2015 so that when we come to you for the 2016 program, we're going to have a much greater level of confidence of where we're going. And even in the 2017 and 2018.
To me,
that's
this
what we
sounds
were
like
after.
the same conversation we've had when you first presented all this stuff about the different streets and what the data that went into it to determine where we're at, and we're still talking about that and spending more money to find out what, to me, a while back, you said this is we got this data, and this is the priorities of the streets, and now we're saying the same thing and spending more money to find out what this is.
Yeah, we're looking to be able to have a better tool to be able to give you better information. You're right.
What better information, I mean, I guess then is this previous tool then no good?
I think,
Because I guess right now I'm just kind of confused as to what the hell we're even talking about.
Can I interject something?
yeah.
Yeah. The line item you're talking about is 669 for $2,500, correct?
Yeah, he had requested
Recommendation, he recommended
34,000.
Yeah, but we're only
Right.
down to 2,500. Here's what the deal is on some of this. What he's doing right now is pretty much like pen and ink, but he's doing it with a computer. He's pretty much taking a map program, he's putting in what he believes, whereas kind of like what Commissioner McAllister said, what Payview does, it actually looks at the season, it prorates that city or that street pretty much by geographical location. So instead of going back out and saying, oh, the streets deteriorated a little bit more, it'll give you an estimate, and for $2,500, I don't know if it'll do the streets like what we're saying.
But
like
it's not for $2,500.
He can't-
He wants
He can't buy
34.
that.
He needs
When-
another 31,500 in order to buy what he wants to do.
But the manager's only giving him 2,500.
No, and that's what he's saying. He wants the program.
He wants to put $31,500 back in there, and I would rather see it go down in contractual work.
Or
if I
back
put
what
it
he
back
said,
in.
you know, after Greg presented his budget, I told him that I could almost agree with them about, you know, putting the money back up under street maintenance where they would do the work themselves. That's doable. You have to understand, when I put these budgets together, I had explained, or I had visited with some of you, and I saw that the major goals was trying to find money, either we do it ourselves or hire a contract service for street maintenance. And all the department heads knew right up front that likely all budgets were going to get cut in order to make that number bigger. That we were going to be cutting out overtime, we were going to be cutting out travel and training, we were going to be cutting out supplies, unnecessary supplies, and a lot was going to get cut in order to make the 500,000 to as big as I could get it without doing a mill levy increase. In totality of his budget, you take the difference of the 850 back to 500,000 and take that away from the bottom line there. His budget is basically the same as what he spent in 2013. And where that's spent per line item is more management for him to manage, but basically, I tried everything I could, every dollar I could get to make that $850,000. So you could actually fix streets.
Does the guttering and the concrete work, does that come out of this or stormwater?
Right now, you mean as far as the valley gutters? We're taking that out of the street program. The first year that we did the street program in 2012, we had quite a bit of curb and gutter that was undertaken, and therefore there was a request from staff to pay for part of that through the stormwater fund. But subsequent to that, the 2013-2014 program, we're paying for that as far as those valley gutters, as far as the removal and replacement of those. We're paying for those as far as within the street maintenance program. It was only when we removed, as far as there was quite a bit of curb and gutter that we undertook in 2012.
It could go either way, but as you'll see in your July presentation, there's a lot of capital needs for stormwater.
Just a thought.
I think between those, again, those two line items, be it 669 and also 701, we were really trying to take advantage of, yes, call them tools or software, to get better information as we move forward. Do we feel we have a good program for you for 2015? Yeah, I think what we have in here, what we've outlined to you, is a good program. But I think as we move forward, I think we're going to find that the information that we have available, even if we update that, it's going to be limited as far as I want to call it, as far as quality of the information that we're able to derive, because of the we're looking at moving forward with potentially water system improvements, and then we're basically going to be working with one that's automated and one that's not. Okay? We're going to be working with an automated water system one, and then one through the street program that is not. And we're going to be basically trying to sort through, and I want to call it literally millions of dollars that are in need of mill and overlay. And if one said, Greg, what do you think is the best segments within there? Yeah, I'm going to throw a dart at the board and say, you know what, it's that one. You know, where we're trying to get a tool that's going to hopefully help guide us as far as further in that direction. That's what we're after. And I should note that once that is undertaken, there's quite a bit of training that's involved in our staff. There's generally 6 days of training that's involved with Cartograph, as well as setting up the attributes related to this. Should we move forward with that, there is a nominal as far as software cost that is paid. I believe it's around $1,000, $1,200 every year for that software as far as for that component. So what we're looking to do is move forward.
Cheap.
Pardon?
That's pretty cheap for software costs when I look at the IT software cost was in the thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. That's pretty cheap software maintenance.
Because that's one program.
One line.
On his IT is multiple.
No,
software.
I'm talking about individuals. I'm not talking about the totality. I'm talking about individual licenses, individual agreements, individual software packages. Most of them are a lot more than that. Now, I don't know how many licenses you need for pay-per-view.
You mean PayView?
PayView.
We would just use, right now, because we're working through implementing the sewer view and the water view, and we have multiple staff that are in that system at any one time. We will have once water view and sewer view are up and running, we could conceivably have up to 5 staff members utilizing all 5 licenses. And so when we move forward with PayView, would we be getting any more licenses? Probably not, because all the staff that potentially could be in it will have those licenses available. And even 5 licenses does not get all the staff that could potentially be in these systems into that. In other words, once those 5 are tied up, they're tied up until somebody else gets out. You know, but they are in and out as far as we're seeing it already, at least with Work Director and at least with the sign view. They're in and out of the use of those licenses on a daily basis, weekly basis. You know, you don't just tie it up and leave it on. You get in and do what you need to do, and you get out.
We're already into water and sewer, right, under this same company?
Correct. We've already gone through as far as a kickoff program. We'll be meeting with them in the less than the next 2 weeks for implementation, and then we'll be looking at going live with the water and sewer view early part of July.
I think once you work the bugs out of water and sewer and everybody gets acclimated to it, then maybe you come back and you,
well, that's what
this is what we have, this is what we've done, this is where we're at, and now we'd like to move forward with more tools in the toolbox. I think now is a little premature.
And let me just add to that. That's why in 2012 we instituted the first component, which was the Work Director, and worked out all those bugs. The Work Director is, I want to call it the large engine of all of these subcomponents. Right. And then the first component that we implemented to get use and then get our staff used to using, I want to call it the handheld device, which is a Tremble unit, was the sign view program. We inventoried plus or minus about 5,000 signs within the city through the use of our co-op student. And that's how we did a lot of the data collection and the I want to call it realignment of the information that we had, which unfortunately in the signs was very limited GIS layer-wise. We're fortunate in sanitary sewer and the water main system. We have quite a bit of information, but there's quite a bit of information we already know that likely is not as accurate as we would like, and we feel that through the use of valve turning exercising through Public Works, we'll pick up a lot of that this summer, as well as through our co-op student as far as for the remaining 2 months that she's on board. So again, we're trying to set the stage not for 2015. We're trying to set the stage of we're going to generate this information or create that database and massage that database in 2015 so we can use it in 2016, 17, and 18. So that's, you know, when you say, have we worked out a lot of the bugs? I think we have with the work director system because we've got some very competent staff in Public Works. The two secretaries are constantly using it. Chris Finger is using it quite a bit. Our new engineering tech is starting to use it as well as our co-op students. So we've got staff members that are utilizing that right now. We're trying to get ourselves positioned, I guess I want to say, to be able to have a very good level of confidence as we move forward with street improvements in the future, but also not just street improvements, but other infrastructure improvements so we can make sure that as we're doing one particular project, be it a mill and overlay on a particular street, we make sure that indeed have we looked at what's going on water-wise, have we looked at what's going on stormwater-wise, have we looked at what's going on sanitary-wise, and we're looking at all those assets simultaneously versus independently. And that's what we're trying to achieve. And I think as we move forward with this system, it's definitely going to help us budgetarily wise to be able to, once we start getting some historical data into those systems, to be able to better guide us on where is our level of effort as far as work effort taking place within these systems, because we are tracking as far as the different attributes, I should say.
Can we go on?
Sure. Would you, I guess would you like me to continue just walking through those items I left off at the 610? Yes. Sure, okay. The welding supplies, 611, we had noted as far as that we were looking as far as for an expenditure of $5,000 within that line item. I got to get myself as far as back to the sheet here, apologize. And likewise, what we were looking as far as for with respects to that was basically as far as welding supplies within the shop to be able to do equipment repairs as far as on the various street as far as equipment. We outlined to you the 614, that's basically our small materials that are used within the streets program right now for be it repairs as far as minor repairs with respects to storm outlets or damage related to the streets themselves. The 632 street maintenance items that are covered as far as within that line item include minor concrete repairs that Public Works would undertake. This could be valley gutter minor repairs or minor street repairs. It could also deal with sidewalk repairs. We've also got as far as dollars allocated in there for asphalt repairs. These are minor repairs. We've done several of those within several subdivisions this past year. It also has the allocation of the city's salt that we use for snow removal, which is roughly $34,000. The sand that we use as far as within that, we pre-mix as far as sand and salt. It's roughly about $10,000 of sand. The crack sealing material that we use as far as to joint crack seal every fall, we have $30,000 allocated within that $144,000. And then likewise, the pothole patch material, we use roughly about $20,000 in pothole patch material on an annual basis. So should we resort to the $100,000, we'd be looking at cutting back several of those items within the internal operations. As far as on the 645, that basically covers the oil changes and fluids with respects to the various equipment that's in streets, the 7 dump trucks, the 1-ton dumps, the 3 pickup trucks, the backhoes, the graders that are within the street program. It covers as far as materials or fluids for one of the street sweepers. It covers all of as far as the filters with respect to as far as those change-outs. And essentially, the number that we were requesting was $19,000. And again, that's based on maintenance schedules as far as of these equipment that we've generated through our Manager Plus, our fleet maintenance software. The next item was 652 and 662 sort of go hand in hand. The 52 is for concrete saw blades, small pieces of as far as equipment within the streets group, as far as their shovels or hand tools that are used as far as within the street operations. Within the shop, what we were looking to do there is further enhance as far as the capabilities of the shop to lift equipment and get it up in the air and be able to service it. We spread as far as some additional lift equipment as far as not only in this budget but also within the water and wastewater and sanitation budgets. So this was basically spread out amongst the 4 budgets.
So that'd be for another lift system?
We're
Like the-
basically
like the
looking
one
for
you
a
bought?
smaller lift system and looking for some basically stand units. These would be freestanding units. The intent is to be able to, we have a limited garage right now. Limited means where we can get equipment serviced. What we would like to be able to do is get that equipment up in the air with the mobile lifts, get stands underneath that equipment so that we can pull those mobile lifts away, get another piece of equipment up in the air. The reasoning for that is that as we're waiting for parts to get delivered for a unit, you're not bringing units up and down and moving them in and out of the garage. That's really what we're after. We're trying to, I guess, multitask as far as within that service garage. And that's really what that line item was for, is basically to purchase as far as jack stands as far as, or frame lift as far as units, is what we're looking to do.
So you'd be buying 4 more of those airlifts to move around the shop?
These would be actually stand units is what they would
So,
be.
so that you're just buying stands to,
Get the equipment up in the air, pull the mobile unit away, leave it up in the air while the parts are on order. The parts generally come in within a day or 2 after we've diagnosed what it is. We can go in and do the repair. We can get the mobile unit back up, bring it back down, and get it out. Whereas, other words, what we're doing is we jack the unit up in the air, we diagnose it, we got to bring it back down, get it out of the way, and get something else, is basically what we're doing. So we've got 2 mechanics right now that are in that shop. They unfortunately take up, I want to say, the bulk of the overtime that occurs within Public Works, and that's because we can't afford to have equipment sitting down.
how many set of stands would you be getting for $19,000?
Actually, that line item is broken down into, we'd be looking at as far as a total of 1 for $14,000 is what we'd be looking at, which is a shop lift. That's the quote that we've gotten right now. And then the other, as far as our for 2 jack stands at $5,000 apiece.
No, I thought you were talking about jack stands, not a shop lift.
Yeah, this is basically, it's referred to as a small shop lift is what it is. Mhm.
Right. And you already have a shop lift.
We have a portable, large lift to be able to lift equipment up and down, right? Mhm.
We were looking at getting additional 2 more lifts, because right now, what we have to do on a tandem unit, we have to chain that axle to the other axle to pick it up. And we don't know if you can do that on that new fire truck, on that axle. So what these would do with it, we would be able to put them under all 6 wheels, pick it up. We've got the additional jack stands to put under it so we can put it up and then we can drop those down. Are they good? They're good because on that SWAT unit that PD has, these are 18,000 pounds each lift.
Mhm.
We were able to pick up the SWAT unit where Dick Edwards couldn't pick up that SWAT unit at all. We were able to look up underneath there and check everything out. So by allowing us to get those other 2, we won't have to screw around and chain that extra axle to try to pick this unit up.
Mhm.
And not knowing whether on that new fire department unit, that axle, if we can do that, we might damage it by doing it, and we wouldn't be able to pick up that, I think it's a ladder truck that they were getting.
Right.
We don't know, if we did that, we might damage that extra axle. Wouldn't be able to pick that unit up. With these 2 units, 2 extra jacks, we'll be able to do that, and then plus the other jack frames, we'll be able to put them underneath the unit and then drop it, and then we can still have that unit up there, work on it, and then come back and work on another unit, and then come back and fix that one and drop it down.
Manufacturer probably could help out on that a little bit, couldn't they? On the fire truck,
Well, I imagine they could.
as to what can lift it and,
Right. That's our only concern is not being able to get a change that extra axle up.
that sounds
That's dangerous.
pretty shaky to me.
Sounds like you shouldn't be
I'm
doing
saying
it.
that, I mean, it'd be better if we had those extra 2 lifts to do that, and that would be what we need to do.
And the manufacturer may have something else in mind as well.
Correct.
Right.
I wanted to maybe just go back to that 652. I was flipping through our sheets, and just to give you an idea of the items that typically are picked up in that tool portion is basically the wood that we use as far as for concrete forming is purchased through there. Any of the small tools, be it rakes, trowels, or floats, are purchased as far as through there. We also, as far as purchase any of the saw blades, the concrete blades that we use, the 20-inch saw blades, as well as for concrete as well as asphalt are purchased through that. So those are the typically the types of items that would be procured as far as through that. Again, I want to note that when you look at that 2013 actual, unfortunately they had posted as far as many items in there, that tool item, and they should have been posted as far as in others. Again, we were requesting $19,000 as far as underneath tools. The next item is the 666, which is the subscription and books. What this line item is for this is for updates of motor manuals for the various pieces of equipment. Many of these come through online or CD versions. We don't keep a lot of hard copy documents, although some of them are, and that's what this $2,500 was for. So that again, the two mechanics have updated information to be able to service as far as the equipment. We already talked about the 669 software. That, again, was for moving forward as far as with the PayView program within the street as far as fund. The 670, that line item is for traffic paint we've got 21 parking lots that the city maintains. We've got over 60 intersections that are addressed through traffic. We also purchase as far as tape material, be it for the barricade systems, and also our traffic cones as far as are purchased through that line item. The 682, one of the items that we had addressed back when we took the Public Works operation, and you'll see this true in the 4 budgets within Public Works, be it the water operations, sanitary sewer or wastewater operations, and also the sanitation or solid waste, is that we agreed that the city would cover the cost of boots, steel-toed boots for all of the full-time Public Works staff, as well as we would provide them a clothing allowance because we wanted to assure that our staff looked professional in the field as well as had safe as far as clothing to wear. If you recall, Viola Water staff members were provided that, and we rehired back many of those individuals. The annual allocation to individuals is roughly $600 annually. However, there is in that monies for us to purchase as far as, say, an outer jacket or bibs that they wear as far as during the winter operations. Because most of the staff have been retained and we're not replacing them on an annual basis, we're not looking as far as to be purchasing that as far as for all of the staff members unless indeed those items wear out. We also purchase as far as in part through this the T-shirts that staff members wear as far as the short sleeves T-shirts. We purchase as far as an allotment for the entire Public Works staff through this line item. And that's essentially it. So that's what you see as far as with respects to that line item. Line item 701, this contractor's agreement. Essentially, reduction in that was us looking to be able to do a infrastructure management services as far as basically a drive-by pavement data collection, both as far as surface and subsurface investigation. That material, our intent would be created in a GIS format. We'd be able to utilize that hand in hand as part of that PayView program to, again, assess better what's going on with our streets, other than as far as the way that we collect the data right now. And we relied quite a bit in talking with the city of Salina and the city of Lawrence. Both those communities have gone through and utilized such a program right now, as far as within their overall pavement management system, to better get a handle on what's going on both surface and subsurface wise. The next item that I guess I would like to call your attention to is 715. This is for building maintenance, and it basically is for work in and around as far as the street maintenance as far as building. What we're looking to do is replace a couple of doors in that building, put an additional concrete pad out as far as off the access of that building, so we can, right now, should we have inclement weather and we're pulling material out, or even if it's wet out in there, we're basically setting it down as far as into the, if you want to call it the mud area, as far as immediately outside that garage. And likewise, we're looking at replacing some doors and also doing some replacement on a couple of the windows. If you recall, 2 years ago, we did some work on the soffits as far as along there with Ben Kitchen's company, and repaired as far as the soffits of that building. We're just trying to, I guess, keep chipping away at that. The engineering services, what we utilize that for is we've had some structural work that we've had Call Valley provide us as far as with respects to as far as a catwalk, as far as area to be able to wash the public works equipment is what we're looking at, and also as far as provide an internal storm drain system on the public works site. Right now we've got a trough system that doesn't operate very well, so we're needing some engineering work to be able to address that. And that's what we were looking for as far as with respects to the engineering services. The traffic signalization, that line item there, we were looking for $30,000. The city manager noted $20,000. Items that are covered typically under that are the traffic poles. We've gone through a number of traffic signals that keep getting hit in this community, or weather damage. The traffic signalization heads, the battery backups, pedestal bases, the batteries as far as that are used as far as within the system, the school flashing clocks, wiring, controllers, and relay materials are utilized within that. The next item that I think this was I believe this was a typo, this 774, where it said $30,000 request. I think our request was for $3,000. And I may have given it to you, Cheryl, as 30,000.
747, I think.
747, I apologize. Where it said 30,000, the department request, and then she had put it down to 2,500. We actually should have had that as 3,000.
3,000?
Mm-hmm. Okay. The central garage area, what we're looking to do is that's basically as far as equipment that's used by the mechanics, as far as small parts, bolts. We use a vendor right now that stocks that. As far as for, I want to call it, the hoses that are used on, we crimp and make our own hose as far as hose replacements as far as on our vehicles. That's an example as far as of the items that are covered underneath that. The small, I want to call it small bolts and metal pieces that are used as far as on the repair of the vehicles are covered as far as underneath that central garage area. The rental equipment, what that line item is for is the ability for us to be able to rent as far as a portable pressure unit, air compressor unit. If you recall, we were very limited as far as time frame wise on that joint crack sealing program, and that's really what that line item is for. We had to rent one last year. As far as unit, we had to rent one, unfortunately, the year before, but if you recall, we just purchased a new one, so hopefully we don't have those issues, but surely this is just to allow us to be able to rent small pieces of equipment that we would use within the street operations. The service contracts, or the equipment service contracts, that is for small diagnostic equipment that we have that's used within the garage area, is what we're looking as far as for that $5,000. There are two, correct me if I'm wrong, Ray, 2 or 3 diagnostic, 2 of them? Okay, that are used. Okay, sure. Okay. I know this has been brought up already in the engineering budget, but the travel and training, I wanted to just point out as far as that, of the overall street budget, this is .08 of this budget. It roughly is about $750 per staff member. We've had a really good amount of success getting our street group trained through LTAP programs, KDOT programs, programs that we've sent them down to as far as material providers down in Wichita. That's really what this line item is for. Likewise, the DPW director and myself, to be able to attend the state APWA conferences included in that, as well as the ability to be able to attend as far as the national conference are covered underneath that $6,000 request. And again, I want to preface as far as that one thing I didn't note is to keep these CEUs, typically there are various conferences that are put on throughout the state, and right now there actually is one this coming week, and it's being held at K-State, but it carries a 3-day period. Typically you have to attend as far as numerous of those throughout the year, as well as over your 3-year period to retain as far as that licensure. And I don't want to keep premising the licensure, but we get invaluable, I think, just informational training or an educational as far as programs that are held that I don't think we would realize as far as this kind of information should we not be able to as far as be able to interact as far as a network as far as with that. And I realize we're trying to cut dollars, but that's why I wanted to point out as far as just the percentage of this overall budget, and when you look at what we're truly allocating as far as for individual staff members.
Mr. McCafferty, on the ones that are distant, check out webinars. You know, we have a budget here. We have to stick with it. So
we actually,
you're going to be able to attend. It's great to attend, but look at webinars. Okay, that's all I'll say, and we'll continue on.
Sure. What I did want to note is we actually do those. Ray and I have had many of those, and we've had staff attend those down in the basement at City Hall. We actually have within the budget this year, but Public Works has not gotten to it, to get a flat screen over at the training room that you see over at Public Works. So we're trying to move forward as far as in that direction.
Okay.
The next item that I wanted to hit on, which was the contractual operations. In your packet, we gave you essentially 2 sheets. What we did is we outlined to you a $500,000 program, and then we outlined to you that if indeed there was an additional $500 allocated towards streets, you would see indeed, based on the information that we know today, that these are the different street segments that would be undertaken, and the program that we'd be looking at moving forward with is basically milling and overlaying these different segments. And if you go to page 18, you'll see indeed those are the particular streets that we would be looking to undertake within next year's program. So what you're seeing is we're not looking to do any micro surfacing this coming year, and we're not looking to do hardly any as far as valley gutters. There is a significant amount of joint crack sealing that we're going to be looking at undertaking within the Public Works internally. It's going to be predominantly on the west side of the city, where we have many of those streets that are now reaching 5 to 6 years in age, and they are in need of preventive maintenance, which is basically joint crack sealing. And that's all I pretty much wanted to cover unless you had any questions regarding the street fund.
But what I see you working with, though, is that far right total, and that's probably the direction we're going to stick with. So some of those things that you mentioned that you'd like to have, we'll probably be going with that 2015 manager recommended, okay?
I'm fine with that. I guess all we wanted you to do is understand where we were coming from on that.
Exactly. We got it.
And realize that the dollars that are allocated is that, yeah, there's certain things we're just going to have to cut back, you know?
On 798, your contract mowing, does that reflect that we're going to cut back on contract mowing, or is that the blight program's working so we don't need as much?
No, these are the public right-of-way properties that we currently mow underneath the public mowing contract. We're in year 3 of a 3-year contract. All we did was add on a 5% increase, which we have seen the last 2 years of this current contractor has requested, so that's what that allocation reflects.
Okay,
It
so
does
that's
not address any of the blight mowing. The blight mowing is a pass-through, and it's separate.
Okay.
Where indeed what we do is we'll go on out and mow that property, blight it, and then bill that blight mowing cost as well as an administrative cost onto the property owner. This is not related to that.
This is all city property here, right?
These are all city properties, right?
Okay.
There's plus or minus about 60 areas that we mow.
There's mowing contracts in airport, streets, Parks and Rec, and blights.
Okay.
And water, wastewater has some of theirs on the
Right,
water plant,
right.
wastewater plant.
I just had a revenue idea on blights. Someday I'll present that to
That'd
you.
be cool. We take cool ideas.
The next budget we'd like to talk to you about is on page 19, which is the special highway. What I'd like to do is really call your attention to page 20. What we've done over the last 3 years is we've tried to leverage these dollars that the city has within this program and trying to take advantage of different KDOT. Yes.
Before we start, can you
Sure.
tell me what headings ought to be at the top of these columns, so this makes some sense to us?
They actually were the years
Yeah.
that got cut off.
Oh, it got cut off when it got shrunk.
I apologize for that.
Here.
When it went through the copier, it got cut off. Sorry about that.
You just had the
Special
year, you don't have the
highway.
heading.
I will tell you,
It is the
Which
years.
was 2000.
I'm going to give you the years
13.
that you're,
You started with
2014.
2013? The
2014.
first column,
the first column is 2013.
well, the first column says project costs, very first column.
Okay.
He's got a good copy of
Oh, does he? I'm sorry.
And real
Okay.
quick. There we go.
So just some of them it cut it off?
They knew the mayor, so they ripped that one
Oh,
right.
did his get cut off?
Yeah, so did mine.
So did some of the others.
Okay.
Nick's isn't, his looks good.
Mine's cut off.
So just for reference, if you looked at that item where it says Metropolitan Planning Organization participation cost, in the center of the page where it says $7,747, that year is actually 2017.
Is that those new copiers, or is that still the old copy?
It's the old one upstairs.
Right.
It's the one that I have left that we're trying to make last another year.
Jim hasn't purchased it yet, but he's thinking about it.
He's got duct tape. You got supplies for, you got an allotment for duct tape, right?
For the copy machine up here?
Yes.
No, sir, that's administrative budget.
But you got duct tape.
Yes,
Bail
actually,
them wire.
we're gonna replace this copier up here with the one downstairs, because it's got 100,000 less copies on it than that one.
Oh, yeah,
We get the new one in.
let's even it up, yeah. Way to go first, Sergeant.
It breaks regularly.
Egress. Go ahead, Greg.
Okay, what I wanted to note on this page 20, what we're trying to do is utilize these dollars that are given to the city from the state, which is basically the balance of these funds, because quite a few of these funds are used for debt obligation pay down, but that leaves roughly around $350,000 allocated to the city on an annual basis. And what we've tried to do is take advantage of various KDOT programs that are out there that we may be eligible for or may be able to receive as far as funding for. And we've listed all of those projects for you that we've pursued. In essence, many of those projects have to be either state trunk lines or they have to be eligible for a particular program, be it the Safe Routes to Schools program. We participated in that in prior years. We're trying to move forward in participating in that again. We've got the Transportation Enhancement Grant, which was for the pedway across K-18 is in there. There are 2 geometric improvements that we're looking to fund through there, which would basically improve the intersections as well as provide signalization. And there are several clink projects, primarily on Washington Street. We're looking to basically mill and overlay those roadways, and basically at roughly around a 50% split on those projects, where the state would participate halfway. And then one of the items that I wanted to call your attention to is if you look at the very bottom where it says balance remaining fiscal year. Cheryl and I had spoken as far as regarding this, and again, we're trying to go after every project that we can conceivably find out there. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of projects that are eligible for these particular programs that the state has. They do have, for example, an intersection accident type program, safety program. They've got a couple other safety programs. We just don't have the traffic volumes or the accidents to qualify for those types of programs. But any of the other ones, we're definitely trying to be aggressive on those. Those additional monies that remain could potentially be used towards the street as far as program, or our street maintenance program. So if you were to follow in that shaded sheet that has at the very bottom, the second row from the bottom, the $470,000 in 2015, those are dollars that we don't have earmarked for use within those the special highway fund. And I think in part, well, Sherry and I had discussed this potentially, that, I mean, those are potential street dollars that if we choose, we could turn around as far as and utilize those.
This is an eligibility requirement. It must meet the state's criteria?
Just as long as it's spent on streets.
Oh, well then why wouldn't we? If we don't have a project that's eligible, for instance, and streets are eligible, why wouldn't we?
That's,
I mean,
I don't
is there...
think that's, yeah, there's,
I mean,
that's not
I
a
see
question
these
for me.
carryovers.
That's not a question for me. I'm more just saying I think it's a good use of those dollars.
Yeah.
But I see these carryovers of a million, of 774,000, 470, 207, 3. If we have that kind of carryover, could we have something sitting on the shelf ready to go for those funds?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
So like that,
I wouldn't know why we wouldn't.
if you look at like, and that's why I'm bringing this to your attention here now, is saying that this particular fund has dollars available. As you see, these projects are all spread out over the next 10 years because of when you have to apply, when the dollars actually become available. We've tried to lay that out and give you that projection of what's happening, and absolutely, those are monies that could very well be used for the street program.
But, and you have to be cautioned, though, because when you get down into your, if all those grants were to become available and ready, and if you used all, excuse me, this money for matching money, you're getting down to only a $200,000 or $300,000 balance by year 2018.
Right, but what I'm
At least 200,000.
what I'm thinking out loud is, why would we hold it,
Correct.
waiting for something to happen that we don't know is going to happen when we already know something else has happened?
Sure. Just to give you a little bit of background, when Mr. Vernon and I was trying to analyze what the monies that were available for taking care of the KDOT, all the money we owed KDOT on the revolving loan fund, we were afraid of taking too much of this money to pay out loans, because you also can use it to pay down your loans as well. Because we thought we would need monies available for grants, and that's your best bang for your buck. So it was intentionally built up. The cash was intentionally built up to use it for grant match, so that you can, a 60-40, a 50-50, an 80-20 grant, when it comes along, you could utilize that and have it available, ready to match.
So does it make sense to bank it?
Both ways.
How has that worked in the past?
It's how you want to prioritize your money. But that's what the intent was. And now that we have, we've been able to do this Safe Routes to School and about ready to do 6th and Franklin and a couple other projects because this is available. We're not taking it from the general fund and saying, oh, well, I'm sorry, we'll have to put that grant off another year because we don't have the grant match. This was intentionally set aside so that you'd have grant match available for doing street projects.
I think what I want to add to this is that is actually one of the items that when I got on board with the city and started to look at, I want to call it our infrastructure system, I was rather surprised that we were not going after any kind of state or federal programs that are out there. I mean, we may or may not have received some of those. I do know that Call Valley did bring a couple of those forward to the city. An example of is the 6th and Franklin one, right in the middle of the page there. That project, it was shelved. It's basically a 90-10 split because it's based on population and the size of your community. It was shelved because, indeed, at the time, the city just didn't even have that local match.
We didn't have 10%.
What we did do is, over the last 3 years, we've looked at every program that is out there and said, you know what, we need to get our foot in the door. Even if it means that it's going to be 2-3 years out when we get these projects, we're better off spending, for example, on Washington. We're better off resurfacing Washington as far as and I believe it's from Chestnut north to 6th Street, basically from Washington all the way over to Franklin, at 50% of the state's cost and 50% of our cost versus 100% on our dime. And we've tried to do that in every, I want to call it, transportation program that's out there. And it's not just streets, but looking at our sidewalks as far as network as well. See indeed what is out there. Is there any traffic safety improvements, dollars that are out there, be it signage, signalization? We're not leaving any rock unturned, I guess is what I'm saying.
And there's going to be more programs come up as we go forward to fill in these other years from 2018 on out to 2030.
Sure.
I think the list that you have along there, we're running out of projects that are eligible underneath the programs that are currently out there. So that's why, as I share this program with you and you see the balance remaining, if all of these projects start falling into the queue the way we would like, that's what you're seeing is the balance that's...
What I was asking was, isn't it very possible, though, in future years there's going to be more programs come available that we can use those funds to match?
Sure, resurfacing, other
things will
other
come to the
resurfacing
surface.
projects, say 6th Street, Washington Street.
More street repairs.
So, it's finally, this sheet makes sense to me now. Reading it without the headings was kind of gobbledygook.
Right, right.
But,
it's a planning tool to show you what's going on and show you
and
projects where we've gone after.
And banking this money is probably the smart thing to do, to use it in the future. When you can get...
I don't know if we ought to bank all of it.
Well, when you can get $297,000 worth of work done for 29.7.
If you can, if it's eligible, right.
And there's going to be more programs come up that will be eligible in the future, I'm sure.
Cash in hand is much more valuable than future cash.
Amen.
Today's dollars are...
Right.
Cash in hand is.
But if we don't have this cash in hand, when these come available, you can't do these either.
Right.
Yeah. I'll repeat it, again, 2014, 15, 16, they're going to spend quite a bit of that down, get it down to as low as a $200,000 cash carry. and then start building it back up again. But this would even go to say, even the East Street project, you're going to have some kind of
Right.
cash match for the future. Now, that's a multi-million-dollar project, and we've said to the federal government, we don't have the money. But even if you had 500,000 or $1 million towards cash match, it'll go a lot further than saying, I don't have anything.
Right. Okay.
Is there any other questions on it? Okay. I think, again, I think our intent is just sharing with you that those dollars are out there to be used.
You're going to spend them on good projects.
The next budget that we'd like to talk with you about is the solid waste.
The break time?
Do you want a break?
We could, sure.
This is a good time.
Please sit down.
Yeah, before we get into solid waste.
The next budget we're going to talk about is on page 21, which is solid waste. And yeah, I'm going to try to be short with these next several because I don't think they're as in-depth. The item that I wanted to bring your attention to was 646, other operations. And we had this in the budget last year. Some of you had expressed an interest of us including this line item in there, or this program within that line item this year, which is a spring cleanup program.
Mm-hmm.
We have gone through and basically put dollars for, we call it the wages and salaries, the fuel, the tools, miscellaneous supplies, the tip fees that would be associated to that. We looked at several other communities. In summary, if we were to move forward with our program, we'd be looking at around $32,000 for that program. Right now, that as the budget stands, this program has been pulled out of that. What we cover as far as underneath that other operations is we basically purchase as far as our dumpsters and our steel dumpsters for residential commercial pickups, multifamily pickups, as well as our bins, our residential bins are paid for out of that line item. The only other item I wanted to note was 715, building maintenance and repair. What we were looking to do there was put in as far as some unit heaters to be able to warm up the trucks as we keep them outside as far as during the winter months, and that's really what that cost was related to that, was to run the electrical services as far as for that.
You'd just be putting outlets on the outside of the building to plug them into?
They would be along the fence line area, as well as we've got some that are on the outside of the building. If we're able to get them along that building right now, we keep other pieces of equipment and we basically move them around. That's what we'd be looking at doing, is to be able to just heat that engine core.
Right.
Is what we'd be looking at doing.
Plug-ins to plug the engine block heaters in.
Right. It's running the electrical and.
Okay.
But as the budget stands, we won't be looking at doing that.
Well, the note isn't what it said there, so I missed that.
Did it not have?
It says barriers for fall leaf and for
Yeah.
spring cleanup.
Oh, all right, yeah, as well, that's right. We were looking at purchasing of additional barriers as far as for that program, expanding that. So that's what that is
How much
for
are-
as well.
How much are the unit heaters? Or this is just the electrical work to do it?
This was the electrical work as far as along there.
Shouldn't be
It's
that much.
$5,000?
Should be a
As well as the barricades. We were looking at purchasing additional barricades.
He
along
also
there.
has shoplift stands on that line.
He was sharing them amongst multiple departments.
Not for building maintenance, that wouldn't be building maintenance and repair, shouldn't be. How much would it cost to do the plug-ins? What, $1,000?
Were there,
Should be plenty.
Couple thousand.
there were a couple thousand,
2,000?
2,500, wasn't it?
So put.
And then
put
we
in-
had
put back in.
as far as 3,000 to 4,000 to buy additional of those barricade concrete units, precast units.
So put 2,000 back in for the electrical outlets?
Are we talking just for the snow trucks, the plow trucks, or the trash?
No, these are
These
the
are
4
trash trucks.
sanitation
These are
trucks.
trash trucks.
Okay.
Right now, in the winter months, what we do is we park them inside the garage. And we got to juggle that because, again, we don't have a lot of room in there.
Okay.
So we got to put the Vector truck in there and hope that we don't have snow, because then we got to put trucks in there to keep them warm and keep the material warm.
So you think you can do it for 2,000?
I think so.
Right? Yeah, it's about
That's a,
500 to 600
Gerald, you gave
apiece.
him the 5,000 he asked for in that line.
Yeah.
no, 715.
715 we're talking about.
He's actually, I took it away.
Looking at the wrong one.
Oh, okay.
715.
I went down to the heat plugs where the note's at.
No.
There's a note
Okay,
there.
I want to
Yeah,
The barrier was, yeah, okay.
So that, 715 is the line item. So that is something he would need. 2,000.
So
2,000
2,000
back.
extra.
Well, we can't just move the trucks up by the bay then? Up by the
Yeah.
building?
They're too many trucks.
They have a hard time starting in the wintertime.
In the winter, they would.
No, I'm saying instead of running it all the way across the parking lot and putting it around the fence where
We
it
could
becomes
potentially put them up
vandaled.
right against the building.
Yeah.
On the,
Yeah, close to the
South side.
building,
That's
a
what he's
good
wanting
idea.
to do, is
Yeah,
putting them up against
that's
the
what he's
building.
talking
So that makes sense.
Because at first you said run it out by the fence, and anytime you put it near the fence, that becomes vandalism.
No, this is.
Those are
this
the
is smart.
barricades for the spring cleanup stuff, right?
Right. We've expanded that program this year, where now we've made a larger bin over at Public Works, be able to take as far as, we call it as far as the leaf materials and compost materials, and that's what we're looking to do, is expand that program with these barriers. I think it was a couple $1,000s, correct me if I'm wrong, Ray?
Yeah, they're like $65 a piece.
Yeah. So I think it was a couple $1,000s to be able to,
Put 12 of them together.
mhm.
So we're going back to 75 or 5,000 for 715?
I'm going to 4,500. Just that we added 2,000 back in there.
These aren't highlighted, but I just wanted to point them out, which is the 835 miscellaneous equipment and the 885. Basically, what we're looking to do, and I should have pointed this out at the very beginning of the budget, underneath the revenue. What we're looking at this year is to increase the sanitation rate from 1706 to 1750 in 2015. It's basically a 44-cent increase. What that does provide is it still retains a 20% reserve within this fund. It also provides dollars to be able to fund the sanitation operations, as well as the ability to be able to move forward with the next sanitation truck as far as purchase. And the way that this is structured is this would be a direct purchase for the next unit, not a lease purchase. Because we have a lease purchase right now on a new unit. We should be getting delivery of that unit on or about September, October here. And then, as you recall, when we took over Public Works, we were looking to basically cycle these units out one every year for the next 4 years is what we're looking to basically undertake.
There's enough cash in the fund to allow a straight purchase, so you don't have to pay for the interest on a lease purchase.
Now, we have two
Why-
835s. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Why would we purchase instead of lease? I know you've talked about that before. Refresh my memory.
On trash trucks?
Yes.
Ooh, they get it beat up really fast, and there's no value in them after they're done. On a trash truck, you don't get any return.
4 years and out, right?
4 to 5 years. It's 5 is, you don't want to
Tops.
go past 5.
The unit that we're looking to replace is a 2008. Right now, it's got about 50,000 mileage hours on it. It right now is in need of roughly around $24,000 to $25,000 of repair today. So we're talking a year from now is where we're at as far as, and what we're seeing with these trucks that's occurring is that the box is basically rusting out on us. And we've already tried to go down that path as far as on re-welding it, as well as purchasing a used box, and we've not been successful.
We've had the discussion and with staff about being more careful how they drive them, but still, it's not That's not all of what's going on. Trash trucks get beat up pretty quickly, pretty fast. And 5 years is quite a bit when you're driving them every day, 8 hours straight.
And that actually is, I didn't highlight on that one, but that actually is one that the city managers gave us back, which was the fluids on this, recognizing the fact that we do need to change the oil as far as on these trucks frequently. We can't be pushing that because we're just going to be just tearing those engines up. So those dollars were put back as far as in the sanitation fund, as far as line item for that. So.
And that still gives us a competitive rate at $17.50 for solid waste.
Okay.
Even with that rate, we are still the lowest as far as of the 5 providers in the
In
community.
the area. Yeah.
And one of the things that I wanted to share with you that we are researching right now and we're looking to bring hopefully before the commission very soon here is a recommendation on our dumpster program. And one of the things we're looking to do is expand on that. And as we move forward with these trucks that we're looking to purchase, all of those are going to have that ability to be able to pick up dumpsters as well as far as the carts. Because we're looking at rear load units on all 4 of our units, not the side loads, which limits us when we go down alleys and the like. And even on those side loads, those limit us on being able to get the dumpster. So our intent as we move forward in the future is that all 4 of our units can not only pick up the residential carts, but also pick up the dumpsters.
You're talking about doing 2 and 4 yard commercial dumpsters
We're actually looking at 2, 4, and 6.
for commercial use?
Right. What we've seen thus far, and we've actually picked up a customer this year, and revenue-wise, I believe it is an additional, correct me if I'm wrong, Ray, is it $18,000 to $24,000 a year? I think it's about $24,000 a year in just one customer alone that came to us, realizing that, I mean, we're the cheapest out there, but even with the recommendation we're wanting to do to modify this, we're still going to be feeling that we're going to be the cheapest game in town. And we just have not explored that type of program as far as to the greatest extent we can within sanitation. I think we're looking at in engineering to balance out the routes through a GIS layer, because right now the way we pick up sanitation, Monday and Tuesdays are light. And Wednesday gets a little heavier. Thursday, Friday are very heavy routes for us. And that's because we're picking up the older part of town at the end of the week, and we're picking up the newer part of town. And yes, we'll eventually get fill-in as far as on that, and we may have to, again, rebalance out those routes. But we're seeing as far as that it's a potential revenue source. So we're exploring that.
You ought to put a little flyer on the yellow and green trash cans and other things here in town.
Well, what we're actually doing is working with customer service, and they're going to be able to provide us all of those commercial users that have water and sewer accounts, but yet they don't have sanitation at the city.
If you want to pay more, stay with who you got, but if you want to pay less, give
Right,
us a call.
right. And what we found is that they're in multi-year contracts, unfortunately. So they have to, they may not be coming on us right now,
Residential, though.
but
Yeah.
they may eventually.
A lot of the customers that Waste Management picked up on their so-called free deal wasn't so free. We now have
Okay.
back.
We've had several come back.
Does the city sanitation go west of 77?
Yes, we do.
Pick up Spring Valley Edition, we pick up in the Southern Woods Edition.
Do you know if they pick up on Spring Valley Road at all?
Well, yeah, I mean, right in
Whole
that
city.
Spring Valley Edition we do. I do know that. I don't know if there's some houses I think do have some of our carts. I'm not sure that all of them do, but we pick up on the west side there.
Okay.
There's a couple on the east side of Spring Valley, but they're on Spring Valley.
In
There is?
July is when we're going to come
Street,
forward
but
with the rate
they're
change,
between,
but also
I've never seen that.
we'll be having our proposal to finalize and clean up the language that has to do with large Special pickups.
Yeah, I know we didn't note this, but one of the things that we're trying to address in the sanitation group is we have we have some confusion amongst how special pickups are handled as far as within the city, and I don't think it was totally.
Can we, let's don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's stick
Okay.
to this.
Okay.
I don't wanna-
Budget.
Sure. Okay. That's all I have underneath sanitation, unless you had any questions.
Answered the lease.
The next budget that we're going to talk about, and Cheryl's going to jointly help me address this one, is the water fund, which is on page 23, 24, and 25.
The revenue side does include the 7.5 on water?
Right.
7.5% increase on rates. The water administration, as you can see, the only real increases along there, it has to do with 2% cost of living increase and reallocation of salaries. For instance, now as part of the payroll, new payroll clerk is in here, and disbursement of salaries. So there is a little bit of readjustment of salaries in there. Then, since the water meters will be changed out in 2015 and 2016, we didn't put a lot of money in water meters. The 200,000 we had up high before because we were doing some change out on the large meters and buying some of the large meters. And since the housing builds are less, we decreased the amount of money spent on water meters. Everything else is at the same or decreased slightly. The debt fees are, as you can see, used to be scattered amongst these 6 sub-departments. What we did was just put it all under administration so that it's tracked and we know exactly what it is we owe on debt and reminds us to make the payments and all of that on time. And then the transfer of funds is your franchise fee to general fund. Any questions?
So revenue's 5.2
Will be next year.
under the new increase.
Yes.
And debit is 2.3, 2.4?
That is just under the administration with debt and franchise fees. And the actual total will be on,
Okay, that's
it's not
just
till you get to the
administration.
very end.
That's it, man, okay.
The total water fund is on page 25. And it shows 5,252,000 for that, but we're spending 8.6. Now remember, we're starting to spend down cash for all these big projects that we're going to start. And it's not until 2016 that we start actually doing, looking into debt service.
Which is would be the loan payment through the state revolving loan program.
In 2015 is when we'll actually explore with the state of Kansas the revolving loan fund for the future projects.
If you look at, and I know we're sort of talking about that capital, if you look at page 26, we've given you an outline of the breakdown of the various water system projects. And the cost really that we're going to be incurring in 2014 and 2015 is primarily engineering design. And we're really not going to be incurring as far as debt payments until 2017, which is when those projects would be 100% complete. So at that time is when we would be making our payments on the state revolving loan program.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you see that as far as breakdown as you do.
This chart gives you the projects that they're going to pursue and based on the recommendations of the engineers.
Will we need any new wells?
If you recall, we're looking at putting in a horizontal collector well system
Okay.
to take advantage of being able to draw or maximize the amount of water we can draw out of the aquifer in
Rather
that
than
area.
individual wells.
Right, rather than going through the expense.
Okay.
And that's a substantial savings in going in that direction.
And we're not, remember one of the projects we talked about early on, Commissioner Landis, was the backup power, when we're now just doing a second feed,
Right.
you know, things like that.
Didn't have to pay for a generator. Yep.
Yes, not going to pay for a generator.
Good.
But those are all the projects listed there that they would be moving forward with, and that's incorporated in this budget.
And I know we're just sort of going through, you see the distribution, if you've got any questions on it. I wanted to point out underneath the water plant production, which is 797, the contract with Viola Water. We included, as far as on page 27, basically the budgetary summary that we worked through with Viola Water in development of. And you'll see as far as the projected, as far as percentage increase, and documentation as far as for basically as far as the contract underneath operating the water plant.
And we're with them until 2017,
We're actually under that
2019.
contract until 2020.
2020.
2018 was the original, and then it was
Right.
extended for 2.
Okay.
Mhm.
Any questions on those?
What about contingencies for, it seems like we're having an increased number of water main breaks and all that kind of thing. Do we have enough set aside for those emergency things?
The line item that covers that is line item 670, miscellaneous supplies. Those are where we buy, as far as all the clamps, as far as the
What page?
saddle taps.
I think it's 24.
I'm sorry, page 24, I apologize, underneath water distribution. Middle of the page, 670, miscellaneous supplies.
40,000.
There's a line item for $40,000.
I'm going to begin to cover some of these breaks, is it?
Well, except for the ones that you get into, like where we have to hire J&K, that would be sufficient, but it's, the only problem is if you'd have to hire J&K on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's the concern. Don't want to get caught short.
Is that in
The
other
line item
service?
that we use for hiring somebody like, I apologize, for somebody like J&K Contracting would be 749, other services.
Yep.
We had requested 20,000. And an example of the break that we're dealing with right now, I mean, that's very unusual, I think. I don't see us having a lot of those. We've got some as-built problems, we've got issues with valves not operating, and on and on. And I suspect our cost from J&K Contracting is going to be in the range of around $10,000 to $15,000, probably closer to 15, because we had to put 2 insertion valves into that main in order to isolate the main because so many of the valves are broken.
Which is why, built into the Raffatellis business plan, was to keep the cash carry, or the reserve
Mhm.
high, because that's what that is for. If you were run into the odd
Right.
occasionals, hopefully occasional, fix, it's going to cost $20,000 that we didn't budget.
Right, that's my concern.
That was the purpose of why we did
Yeah.
what we did, and it's built into that business plan.
Rainy day.
Actually, in 2012, you'll see underneath that same line item, 749. That's actually the year that we had, as far as that 16-inch break over there on Spring Valley
Yeah, it is.
Road, okay? And that was J&K Contracting coming in assisting us. And the only other item that's affected generally by when we have those abnormal breaks is the overtime wages, because we only have limited staff in there, and they are in the process of changing out our large meters, so we don't like to get them chewing all their time up as far as on a 3-weekend type of break situation, because we can't get many meters changed out.
Yep.
So, Anything else? The next budget that we're going to talk about is the wastewater, which is on page 28, 29, 30.
I'm sorry, Greg,
Yes, that's right.
I had one question.
Sure.
I don't recall you covering it. The enclosed customer service counter with protective glass?
Oh, that would be under me.
Mhm.
That, in preparation for, when we no longer can have, when open carry comes, and the signs out front, don't, you can no longer have your
Exemption. around that.
exemption. The customer service clerks would like to have, like they do in banks and like we do for municipal court, a protective glass, where it would go a raised counter that goes up, and there's a protective glass in between them and the customer.
Hasn't been an issue before.
Oh, we have volatile customers.
Do you?
Yeah.
They get escorted out.
Get their water
We've had
shut
several
off and-
escorted. They're standing, we've had them spit at them. We've had them throw things at them.
Okay. Enough said. Good.
All the way up to the ceiling, or is this just?
No,
Like-
just a partial.
6 feet or
It'll
whatever.
probably be 4 to 5 feet high. The counter's already raised, and so it'll go in another additional 3 to 4 feet up.
You need to bring a ladder.
Yeah, you have to bring a ladder to get up, and get it over the counter, but
You see a lever, start running.
But that's just one of the security measures. This year, we're actually upgrading in this budget, it was upgrading the cameras, because the vocal, you can't understand them very well, and the visual is starting to fade, is very poor. So we'll be upgrading the cameras, and then the next step is to get the counters secured.
Okay.
I'll start with the water then.
Wastewater.
All set with water, yep.
Okay, the wastewater, follow that on, starts on page 28 and 29, and then also 30. And you'll want to go back to page 27, because that's where the two wastewater plants are within that Veola Water overall summary. And again, underneath the wastewater, they're looking at for a 4% as far as adjustment.
Same here, revenues.
4%?
4%?
Oh, okay.
4%?
The business plan for suggested a 5.5% for wastewater increase, and in the administration side, there were virtually no changes.
I have one item that I just point out to you, which is 749 other services. One of the things we're looking to continue, we actually have an RFP getting ready to go out on the street and hopefully take bids on very soon, which is the contractual cleaning of our sanitary system by a contractor. They would come in and basically jet the system for us, provide CDs back to us, provide the information back in a GIS format, so we can incorporate that into the sewer view, and then better be able to manage as far as what's going on with our sanitary system. We've sort of done a hit or miss with some root controls and alike, and we feel that we truly need to move this program forward so that we can start a fresh start and know where we're at.
Insurance carriers also want you to have these programs for cleaning the lines, so that you can prove that once every 3 to 5 years you've been in that line and cleaned it out and have maintained it. Because if you have that documentation, then you are basically exempt from liability of any sewer backups that go into their home, unless they can prove that a worker actually caused the problem. One of your workers caused the problem. But
You weren't saying 749, were you?
On page
Yes.
720.
Other services.
on page 29.
749, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
On page 29,
There were two of them.
$1,000 to do that?
No, up here.
130,000 to do a
Oh,
quarter
Yeah,
of the
we
system.
increased it by 40,000 in order
Okay.
for that to happen. You should
Okay.
clean at least a quarter of your system annually,
Okay.
and you rotate it around.
Yeah, because that is an expensive contract.
You could lose that in one house backup if you don't do it.
Yeah.
And we've just been kind of doing ours on the fly as there's a problem.
Not been really good
We've
at
been
it.
reactionary, not proactive. Correct.
So we're switching over to a proactive program, as you're supposed to.
And just like the water, if you look on, follow as far as on page 30, again, we're basically looking to do the same thing. The early years is basically engineering design. And you'll see as far as that in 2017, basically is when the debt obligation would start.
Where are we going to come up with that? In 2017, all those debt obligations come due. What is the revenue going to,
That's why,
Rates are being adjusted
that's the
down.
rate,
That-
that's the
to
business
their-
plan that
Another
Rafael
book we have to
us.
read.
and that's that
Business
4%, 5%, 7%?
Right.
Correct.
And so that is scheduled out to be able to cover those
That cover the debt.
debt obligations?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. We laid out a 10-year plan.
10-year plan?
Mhm.
Okay.
And again, the way to look at our rates is depending on when we let the contracts and what those bids come in at, what Rafatellus has given us, as well as our engineers, is here's what they believe is a worst-case scenario. So it may show 7.5 for that water rate increase. In order just to be able to cover the program, we'll readjust that. And it could very well be just a 7% increase versus a 7.5.
Right, okay.
And that's why they're recommending for us to adjust them on an annual basis.
And they're, when they're finished giving us all of the data and everything, they're giving us a software program that allows us to do that internal rate check
Mhm.
annually.
The last budget we're looking to talk with you this evening is the stormwater. It's on page 31 and 32. And this one's been modified. We've had several discussions, and I know you're going to have a workshop on July 8th with AMAC in presenting you the city's stormwater management plan, and included in that will be a financial business plan outlining how indeed they feel the city should be addressing our future permit requirements, our operation and maintenance of our stormwater system, as well as covering obviously the existing debt obligations we have, but also outlining a capital improvement program. We have several systems that are under capacity as far as in there, as well as they're deteriorated to the point that they need to be replaced or repaired. And they're not items that we could have Public Works go in there, unfortunately, and go in and repair them. They're far beyond their abilities. And then the final item is that they would outline to us what they believe should be a method that the city should undertake with respects to our stormwater fee. As you recall, we noted to you that we felt that needed to be re-looked at rather substantially, because we essentially basically adopted another community's fee program and basically incorporated it into ours without really taking into account as far as the expenditures that should be related to a stormwater program. And so this reflects that. Some of the items that are reflected in that is we are looking as far as underneath the wages and salaries portion, which is 520. We're looking to hire 2 new Public Works Maintenance 1 workers. And what we're looking to do is what's been identified already early on in this program, and you'll see that on the there is a substantial number of major and minor inlets and manholes and failures of pipes and blockages of pipes, several hundreds of these that need to be as far as maintained. And we just haven't maintained them for years. And we're looking to be able to engage those staff members. Right now, all of the maintenance or any maintenance that's related to stormwater, the stormwater system, comes out of the street fund. So those are the staff members right now, and we do not spend very much street fund-wise, primarily just because we don't have the dollars. And so this also reflects, as far as that kind of activity as well, is undertaking as far as the maintenance-related work items as well. So if you look at 670 miscellaneous supplies, that's basically the materials that we would need to start correcting as far as some of these items. And unfortunately, some of them are contractual because we don't have the equipment to be able to clean out those systems. So if there are any questions regarding that, I'd try to answer those. I do have an item, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to give this to you this evening, that sort of summarizes that stormwater fund. Maybe I could, not to inundate you with more information, but it'll give you an idea of what we're really talking about. This is your copy. Of what we're really talking about as far as this stormwater system, so you can get the magnitude of, as we've developed this type of stormwater management plan and truly look at this system as it is, which is it's an infrastructure utility. And the first page is basically just summarizing you to get a feel of what are we after with respect to this stormwater fund. We're really needing to address as far as different provisions within our stormwater permit as far as compliance. And we haven't really been doing a very good job of that. And there's a new permit as far as that will be issued to us that's going to outline additional items that we have to do with respects to public ed, illicit discharges, some provisions with respects to our ordinance. Some of these AMAC has addressed, but there's some other additional items that are going to need to be undertaken. And then I've sort of outlined to you with respects to the operation and maintenance. We noted to you that there was about 5,800 nodes, be it pipes or catch basins or manholes. And these are the numbers. If you look at this first page, and I know it's very small, but you're able to see it, is you can see all those yellow dots and all those red dots. The red dots are major obstructions, major failures in the system, and the yellow dots are minor failures or obstructions as far as in the system that need to be addressed. There's deficient capacity and there's storm system failures basically at those areas, and those were identified during the field inventory. The final page is to give you just a preview of what is going on with respects to our stormwater system, with respects to the storms that it should be designed to be able to accommodate. And if you'll notice, 90% of that, or the area that's really in orange, is in the older segment of the city. And we had a storm event, it wasn't last year?
Last August.
Chris, last August, that caused as far as substantial flooding in several of these areas in orange. And that's because, indeed, those storm systems, they are not designed to handle the capacity of storm that they should. And that'll be further outlined to you as far as August 8th.
It was difficult to create this budget for
Yes.
you without seeing the presentation of what we were needing, but it'll make more sense after the July 8th presentation.
I guess what I want to say in closing is yes, we are looking for those. Probably the biggest item is those staff members. The other thing is to note is in the underneath the lease purchase, which is 837 on page 31. One of the items that we're looking to do is we're looking to replace one of the city's street sweepers. As you know, we've got two of them. One of them is a 1998 unit. It is the unit that has basically been inoperable for much of the year right now. We only run as far as with the one. And we're looking to replace that unit. stormwater, or call it sweeping of debris and materials off of a street, has actually been proven probably the most cost-effective stormwater management items that you can undertake in a community. And so what we're doing is trying to leverage another fund to be able to cover as far as basically a permit as far as item that we need to address.
This is,
So-
this would be purchased on a lease purchase, the
Right.
sweeper and the new Vector. Just what I was trying to explain to you earlier, here's the revenue fund, where it's revenue in, revenue out, or expenditure out for the total amount, and then you pay for it, and it's capitalized each year on a lease purchase.
So that's all I really have to cover on that, unless you had any questions on it.
So we're really upside down, it looks like, in stormwater then, right?
Except for this lease purchase is amortized out, which inflates that.
Yeah, it gets inflated because of the 395. That's revenue in, revenue out, expenditure out, right away.
And one of the things we wanted to point out as you look at those, the contractuals as far as cost, which is the 701, the contractor's agreement,
Yeah.
those are capital projects, and the intent with those projects is to, as we move forward with these, is to marry those with street projects, water main projects, and alike, so that we can get some combination. Right now, we have 2 projects that have been identified as very high priorities already within the stormwater system.
But don't tie to streets.
And they don't tie to streets, right. They're independent. One of them is, we have some significant failure, and I know we've expended about $250,000 over at Price Ravines. That ravine is even further deteriorating and accelerating itself. It is now creeping itself as far as further towards the water plant, and it's also undermining immediately just past K57. We've had some conversations with HDR and also AMAC, and I actually got a conference call with them. Our intent is eventually to come before you very soon on that project. The hope is to maybe have some KDOT dollars to help address the front end of it, but we're looking as far as at least on the majority of it, there unfortunately is not a funding mechanism for it. The other is a failure that we're having over near the Union Pacific Railroad and First Street, where there's an old oxbow area that there used to be an end section there, and there used to be some backflow gates that were at the end of those various pipes. There's 3 box culverts that go underneath that. One of them is plugged. It is in the maintenance area. The other one, the middle one, is about a third plugged. And on the other side of it, the end section is basically just washed away, as well as the embankment. So rather substantial project. It's not one that Public Works is able to address. And we're trying to, as far as get some final engineering numbers as far as with respects to it. But those are 2 projects we're looking at.
But the railroad one you're going to come to this year yet.
Right. We're actually looking at coming to you before, for the railroad one this year.
Do you need any special software for that?
No, we won't. I know in the future.
This is
well,
sarcastic.
I know, but it just to add.
Address it. Don't address it.
Yeah, I won't. But we do have an item that we have looked at with the stormwater management plan. and
Is
they
there
will
any
address it.
railroad money, Union Pacific money that comes with that?
No, we've not broached the railroad yet as far as on this. I don't believe there will be, because we have a permit already to put those 3 culverts underneath. We pay an annual fee for that permit to put those storm sewers underneath their railroad.
And it's an active crossing there, but
It helps them.
Actually,
I don't
there's no crossing right there. It's at the end of First Street. So if you take First Street going, orientate myself. I want to say east,
right.
and you tee right into the Union Pacific Railroad. On the other side of it, or called the eastern side of the railroad, you'll see the failure. It's rather substantial. And significant amount of earthwork and riprap that will need to be placed.
Bank stabilization.
Right, right. That's all I have.
We really don't want a railroad accident.
No.
They were pretty good when they were here talking to Mr. Vernon and myself, and they said, let us know how they can help. So I think we need to reach out to them.
We are going to have
Yeah,
to, I mean, because
we have to.
we'll need a permit from them to do the work anyways.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We'll have to discuss it with them.
Well, I know the Union Pacific partners with Fort Riley on different projects, and they have, because it's a loadout, they have come up with Union Pacific dollars that may be worth a try.
Oh, absolutely.
We'll ask.
Absolutely, we'll ask. I mean, we definitely have to reach out to them.
We just know it's a project that can't wait beyond this year.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why, as soon as he gets it together, he'll come to you with all of that.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
None here.
Aye, aye.
Maybe we go home. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank